Hey everybody, welcome to another entry in the Hyrule Compendium, and we're still talking about that same interview that Anuma gave during E3 actually, because there was a lot of juicy content, a lot of juicy bits in there.
Mm-hmm.
So he was asked if the chamber dungeon mode that's coming to Link's Awakening, if that was successful, would he be open to doing a Zelda Maker? And his response was, well, basically, I'll keep an open mind to it if it goes well. He's kind of, unclear, but...
Right. Any sort of Zelda Maker, I think, would have to be a lot more elaborate than, say, Mario Maker. Because, so this is the chamber dungeon. Mm-hmm. It's literally just taking the existing rooms that already exist in all the dungeons and, fitting them together like puzzle pieces to make sure that the rooms don't go to nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. I could see how that could be fun because it's sort of like a greatest hits of all the dungeons.
Yeah.
But this is hardly any sort of Zelda Maker right now. Because there's no as far as we know, there's no customization here, and I don't know if there will be.
Yeah, it's hard to say. It looks like you just collect the room. So I think the surprising things through it, if you want to even call it a surprise, will be like, oh, what are the layouts going to be? There's the heart.
Right.
It won't be like anything crazy like that.
It might be like a puzzle, just you have to use you have to get all the pieces to fit the puzzle. Maybe that's like a puzzle in of itself, but...
Yeah, it's not going to be anything like mind-blowing, I don't think.
Yeah, and as far as it looks, it doesn't look like you can alter anything let's put an extra Hynix in here or something. Let's put some Stalfos in here.
Mm-hmm.
There's no editing whatsoever. I think it's just literally the rooms.
Yeah.
At least that's what it appears to be. I think if they ever did a Zelda Maker, they would need to go above and beyond.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not just think of Mario Maker, you can just plot enemies basically and change the landscape and everything.
Yeah.
But with Zelda, a 2D games, the rooms have to make sense because there's a lot of unless it's very simplistic and it's just find keys and unlock doors.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't imagine they're gonna go back to that. I imagine there'd be somewhat more elaborate puzzles involved.
I mean, find keys, unlock doors. That's what Link's Awakening is. There's not a lot of stuff like the Water Temple or whatever where it's controlling the whole dungeon.
Mm-hmm.
There's the most you get is probably Eagle's Tower or whatever.
Right.
But
that's a good example.
Uh-huh.
Where the landscape, the whole dungeon is like a puzzle where you got to knock the pillars down and it changes the orientation of the dungeon. And that's kind of a key feature, I think, of modern Zelda dungeons.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can do a traditional dungeon maker kind of game. Like the original Legend of Zelda, for example.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if that flies nowadays.
Well,
do you think they could?
I think so, because if you look at for example, Mario Maker, people have come up with really elaborate puzzles that aren't obvious, but the tool set is there to do it, but you have to be you have to have some ingenuity a little bit,
Okay.
So obviously they're not gonna, because it would be maybe a waste or silly to be we're gonna design it around this one specific mechanic like they would for a regular dungeon, but they could give you some tools that you could almost fake some of the or create the illusion that it's doing some of these more complex things.
Right.
So in Mario Maker, they can make seemingly complex things happen, but it's with, the basic tool set they have there.
Right. And the other thing, I think this kind of goes along with that. With Zelda, if you can customize what Link has as well. So let's say you enter this, in my dungeon that I make, you enter it with 6 hearts and just a sword, and that's it. Or maybe not even a sword. And maybe it's a giant dungeon with 40 rooms. And
I see.
There's puzzles like, okay, there's lava pits. Oh, clearly we can't get over these.
Right.
You know, it's like somewhere in this dungeon you got to find Rock's feather.
Uh-huh.
And it's like buried somewhere. Oh, there's pots in the way. We can't lift these. Somewhere in the dungeon there's a power bracelet.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it gets you thinking of where you have to go and what you haven't gone to yet.
Yeah.
And maybe if you can like mark on your maps or like Phantom
Sure.
Hourglass a little bit. Like they could do stuff like that if they added like a whole bunch of items in Link's inventory to allow you to customize stuff like that.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it, I really like that idea.
Sure, yeah. That could be fun too, like setting. Well, they have that coming in Mario Maker 2 where you can set win conditions more than just get to the end of the level.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's about setting the expectation of what you can do in the game, you
Right.
know? Like with Mario Maker, for example, nobody's expecting to recreate Bob-omb Battlefield from the Nintendo 64
Mm-hmm.
because that's not the realm you're working in here.
Right.
So if they came in here with if they're, say they spin it off from Link's Awakening,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that's kind of, you set sort of the I don't want to say set expectations low because that sounds
Simplistic,
negative.
I think, is the word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's something you could do with, I was saying in the other video where we talked about this, where each room essentially has a tile, you know, so you could have some like maybe base rooms you said, but maybe if you wanted to if you wanted to mess with some of the tiles, you know, like, okay, we're going to make a pit here now, so I can swap this square to a hole, this square to
Right.
a hole, you know, something like
That
that.
seems like the basic stuff. Yeah, I think that's a guarantee if they ever make a Zelda Maker where you can design the room like that.
Yeah.
It's like a little, yeah.
And I'm sure they can, and then it's one of those things where it can get updated throughout time. So like, maybe if eventually they do want to be like, okay, now we'll have a one where you can, if you want to include this feature in your dungeon, you can, but you can have changing a water level or something.
Yeah, I think it needs it. Like when I think of like Oracle of Ages, I think
Uh-huh.
a lot of those dungeons change, or like, I don't know, could you do something like Moonlit Grotto where there was like that little wheel in the middle of the dungeon and you had to hit the 4 crystals on the 4 ends and then it dropped down to the floor below.
Uh-huh.
And now there's a new set of puzzles now that you have this wheel.
Uh-huh.
You know, like, I wonder if something like that could be built in, or something like Mermaid's Cave where there was a past and present. You know,
Yeah.
it's like every dungeon had something, or Jabu Jabu with the water raising and lowering.
Yeah. But that's not like, that's not a thing that's present in like A Link to the Past, for example.
Right, I know.
So like, I don't know. I think they could get away with, I don't think out the gate it has to be this super complex thing.
Yeah,
Because
right.
there will be more iterations of it first. I think people would be happy to just design their own rooms and stuff at first.
Yeah,
And then as, you know, as there are going to be people who stick with it, who are going to be more invested in it, they're going to figure out the workarounds. And then,
right.
yeah.
I've played a lot of Zelda Classic, which is
Uh-huh.
like the fan game 2D builder.
Right.
And because it's kind of open, there's people have done a lot of like very inventive stuff
Right.
within those games. And so that's got me thinking more in line with that. But
Sure.
I don't know. Never doubt Nintendo, I don't think.
Well, one thing I see too is when he said, "Oh, I'll keep my mind open to it going forward." I could see the idea being, and this is again with expectations, where this is a mode that's incorporated into Link's Awakening. So maybe whatever the next game that's sort of like that also has a chamber dungeon mode, but now, you know, we've had some time with that mode and we've thought of some tweaks to it.
Right.
You know, so maybe it doesn't come in the form of its own game, but maybe that's going to be like a, you know, kind of like you'd expect this feature to come with a Zelda game, or at least
Right.
a top-down Zelda game, you know.
Yeah.
And so maybe it can just be something that evolves throughout.
Yeah.
You know, say they remake the Oracle games.
Yeah. And just call them Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons. Right?
Yeah, yeah. But you know, maybe then it's like, okay, here is a Chamber Dungeons mode too. And since we kind of have this tech for this game, here's some of those things you were talking about.
Right. Yeah. I could totally see that. This is not the end of it. This is...
I can already tell that it's going to be something people are into.
It's just this user-created content is
It's
part
huge
of
now.
so many games now, like with Minecraft and Mario Maker. Even before that, like Little Big Planet, like
Right.
that's like a whole genre, I would say.
Yeah.
And it's like I make a level, come play my level. It's
Oh yeah, and Nintendo is super big right now on online, so I wouldn't put it past them to want to keep having some online functionality in almost all of their games.
yeah. We will get Zelda Maker. I don't know if it will ever be called Zelda Maker, but I think we're inching in that direction. I think.
Sure, and every day I read about some new like, oh, here's like a fan adventure maker, and it's just basically Zelda Maker.
Mm-hmm.
You think they'll do that enough where Nintendo's like, okay,
Right.
we'll do this. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think of this. Is it gonna get its own game? Is it too complex? Who knows? Give us a like if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe, and come join our Discord. We've got all these new channels for all the Zelda games coming out. And thanks for watching.
Wait, hold on. Do we have any fuzz?
You're fuzz free.
My mom says I need to color my hair.
What color?
No, I think she's referring to the
Oh, you're starting to look like an old man.
old man.
No, it makes you look sophisticated.
Okay.